Hi guys, how you doing? It's been a long time. It's Will here, back for another fight card here from the UFC. They're in Seattle this time, um, for UFC on Fox 8, I think it is, which has been headlined by a flyweight title match between Demetrious Johnson and the challenger is John Moraga. As I say, it's been a few weeks. We've had some really good fight cards if you've been checking them out around the world. We had Invicta. I want to say props to Joanne Calderwood, who I'm a huge fan of. She's a Scottish fighter. She's looking great right now. Hopefully, she can progress in Invicta and make big strides in women's MMA. And then we had Cage Warriors this weekend here from Liverpool, which was a great card. If you got a chance, go check it out. Before I go on to UFC on Fox, I want to talk about our last UFC fight card, which will go down as one of the most historic in the UFC. UFC 162, when it was Chris Weidman challenging Anderson Silva for the middleweight title, and it was one of the best. I couldn't believe it. I thought Chris Weidman would win by knockout, not a hope in hell. And when it happened, I literally shit my pants in excitement. My fiance nearly kicked me out the house for the noise I was making. I woke my neighbours up. So yeah, it was. I thought it was a really good card. The first 5 or 6 fights were really good. The prelims on Facebook and some on FX were great. The main card was a bit meh, but the main event more than made up for it. Anderson Silva got what he truly deserved against a dangerous opponent, and we're all booked up for the rematch now at UFC 168, which on paper right now looks there's only a couple of fights made, but it's going to be a big card to finish off 2013 rematches. Anderson Silva will be challenging Chris Weidman for the UFC middleweight title, and Ronda Rousey versus Miesha Tate will be the co-main event for the women's title, bantamweight title, which that's just going to be a great way to finish 2013. I cannot wait for that card to come around because I know it's going to have a stacked main card, probably great fights throughout. So yeah, but that was UFC 162, which was awesome. Let's move on to our next event, which is UFC on Fox from the Key Arena in Seattle, Washington, where the flyweight title will be on the line. The card, it was looking kind of okay, but there's been kind of chops and changes. It's not as strong as some of the other UFC on Fox cards, but it's still a really good card with some really good fights, good looking fights on it. We're going to start all the way down at the bottom. We've got first fight of the night is John Albert against Yatsin Meza. Meza, I think this is his second fight in the UFC. He comes out the MMA lab in Phoenix, Arizona, and his last fight was against Chad Mendes. He came in late against Chad Mendes as a replacement. Chad Mendes is one of the best in his division, up there at featherweight. So it wasn't a good time to really face Chad Mendes. Chad Mendes, I think, is the number 2 guy in that division, in the featherweight division behind Jose Aldo, and he got knocked out. And he's against John Albert, who's lost his last 3 fights, but they've all been to pretty credible guys in the UFC. Really good fighters, tough fighters. Ivan Menjivar, who's a veteran of the sport, who's been around for a while and fought some of the biggest names. He lost to Eric Perez, who's one of the best guys coming through that division, and then he lost to Scott Jorgensen, who's always tough no matter who he faces. But it's a big fight for Albert, because if he doesn't win this, he's going to go. His lone UFC win was against Dustin Paige by TKO away back in December 2011. So he needs to win this fight. But I'm going to go for Yatsin Meza. I think he's probably at his natural weight class. I reckon, if I remember reading right. And he's got a bit more time to prepare for Albert. So I'm going to go for Meza by decision to start off the card here. UFC on Fox. Next up we have, I think it's Aaron Riley against Justin Salas. Now Aaron Riley's been in the UFC for a long time, fought a lot of fighters. He's kind of, for the tough fighters that seem to kind of get him, Tony Ferguson was one of them. That was his last fight, which was away back UFC 135, so that's a long time he's been out. A year and a half, coming up 2 years. His wins, he's got them over Shane Nelson, Joe Brammer, George Gurgel, but I'm not too sure about Aaron Riley in this fight. I don't really like his chances against Salas. I'm liking Salas in this fight. Salas, third fight in the UFC, he's won one, he's lost one. He lost one to Tim Means by TKO, and he beat Anton Koivunen away back in 2012 for his first UFC win. I just like Salas in this fight, and I think he can stop Aaron Riley. I don't know whether I think he might knock him out, so I'm going to go with Justin Salas by TKO in the third. Then we move on to the FX card, which is starts with a women's fight between Julie Kedzie and Germaine de Randamie. Julie Kedzie, veteran of women's MMA, has been around for years, fights out the Jacksons in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She's fought in all the promotions around. She's lost her last couple of fights. She had a really quite good fight with Misha Tate, back and forth kind of fight. She's faced Alexis Davis before that and lost, but she's faced a lot of the bigger fighters around the women's game throughout the years. I say she's been around forever. She faced Gina Carano back in the day. She's got a 16-11 record against de Randamie here. I think she's only got about 4 or 5 fights. She's a Dutch kickboxer, so yeah, she's 3-2, and this is her first fight in the UFC. She only had a couple of fights in Strikeforce, which she won both, one by decision against Yamanaka, and she beat Stephanie Weber by KO. So this is a big fight for both girls here, but I'm going to go with the experience of Julie Kedzie here to get the victory, and I think it'll be by decision. It'll be a good fight, but I think it'll be by decision. Next up, we've got Ed Herman against Trevor Smith. Ed Herman's been in the UFC for years. I've got to give him props for going over to Strikeforce last time out when he faced against Jacare, and he got submitted by Kimura. But he's been around for a long time. He's beat Kyle Noak, Clifford Starks, Tim Crader, David Loazo. So he's been around. I think his first UFC was the Ultimate 3 finale, which was way back in 2006 when he lost to Kendall Grove. And that's a long time to be in the sport, and especially around the UFC for that amount of time. And he's got Trevor Smith here. Don't know much about it. I know he was in Strikeforce. I think I've watched a couple of his fights. He lost last time out to Tim Kennedy, which couldn't care less about. And he beat he lost to Gian Vellante in his other kind of Strikeforce fight as well. He was on the Challengers for a little bit and didn't really beat anybody on there. So yeah, I think I'm going to go Ed Herman submission. I think Smith's not great on the ground, and Ed Herman's I think one of his strengths is on the ground. He's quite a good jiu-jitsu practitioner as well. Next up, we've got Eve Edwards against Darren Cruikshank. Cruikshank's coming in here for an injured Spencer Fisher. Edwards, I think I've already spoke about this guy a couple of times already. He's faced everybody in the sport. Tough guy. Doesn't get knocked out except for the time against Sam Stout. Doesn't really get stopped very much. Darren Cruikshank, who is he's great on his feet. Last time out to McDessie. I like Eve Edwards in this fight. I think he's too experienced for Cruikshank, and I reckon he will win an easy decision in that. So next up, we've got Mac Danzig against Melvin Gillard. Now, I like Melvin Gillard. He gets a lot of shit on Twitter. He is a good fighter, but he just blows himself up too much, and then when he does get beat, everybody goes after him, which is fair enough. Mac Danzig, and he's another really, it's a guy I really like watch fighting. He won the Ultimate Fighter way back in the day. He's coming off a loss to Takanori Gomi way back in China last year. Wins over Escudero, Stevenson, Buchholz, but he's lost to top guys in Jim Miller and Matt Wyman a couple of times. So this is a big fight for both guys here. Melvin Gillard needs to win this fight. I think his lone win, his last 5 fights was against Fabrizio Cameos, which wasn't anything special either. He's lost to Jamie Varner. He got knocked out by Donald Cerrone. He got submitted by Joe Lozon and Jim Miller when he was in a role in that division. I'm going to go for, I actually think Melvin Gillard will knock out Mac Danzig, and I think he'll do it in the second round. I just think Gillard's been off a way a bit. He's working at the Grudge Training Centre in Colorado, I think it is, and they kind of Trevor Whitman's up there, so he might be working his striking. I think he might catch him and he's very quick. He's one of the quickest in the division. So I'm going to go with Melvin Gillard by TKO second round. Next up, we've got a guy I don't really like, Danny Castillo, which I've said before. Fuck Danny Castillo. He's against Tim Means. Not going to go into this. Tim Means by anyway, as long as Danny Castillo doesn't win. That's my views on that fight. Tim Means, I think his last win was against Justin Salas. But as long as he beats Danny Castillo, that's all I really want to happen. Next up, we've got a tough winner. One of the best stories to ever come out of tough was Michael Chiesa against Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal is a veteran of the sport, faced all the good fighters in the lightweight division, from Gilbert Melendez to Josh Thompson, and now he's in the UFC. He's coming off a win in his last fight against, let me see off the top of my head, Tim Means. In fact, that was Tim Means' last fight, and I think that was quite close. It could have kind of went either way. But he's against Michael Chiesa here, who I said is one of the best stories to ever come out of tough. Won the show while his dad died while he was on the show. And he's won these last two fights, Al Iaquinta to win the title, and he submitted Anton Koivunen. So this is a big fight for Chiesa. He's kind of moving up in a step and talent in the UFC for the fights here, who he's facing. Close fight. If it goes to the ground, the watered down Royce Gracie, as Masvidal puts it, I think we'll have an advantage down there. But say Masvidal is a veteran, so he's been down there before with probably better guys on the ground than Michael Chiesa. I think Chiesa might take this by decision, but I reckon it could be a pretty close fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of goes either way. But I'm going to go for Michael Chiesa by decision. We move on to the main card, and it started with the women again. It's Liz Carmouche, who's coming off a UFC 157 main event against Ronda Rousey, where she gave her a run for her money, tried to get her back, tried to choke her out. And she's against Jessica Andrade here. Now, Andrade is a young 21-year-old Brazilian woman, 9-2 record, 5 knockouts, 4 submissions. So she's a finisher. Hasn't faced anybody of kind of great quality. She's replacing Miesha Tate here, who got pulled after Kat Zingano got injured. Just about to start filming for the Tough 18. So yeah, Liz Carmouche is tough, and this is a tough fight to come into the UFC for Andrade. I like Liz Carmouche. I think she'll stop Andrade. I think she'll knock her out in the first or second by ground and pound. So yeah, I think I'm going to go Liz Carmouche, TKO, second round. But a big fight for Andrade in a UFC debut, and I'm sure she'll learn a lot from it, considering how young she is in the sport. Next up, we've got Ruthless Robbie Lawler against Bobby Volker. Robbie Lawler, last time out, knocked out Josh Koscheck. It was maybe a dubious stoppage, but he knocked out Josh Koscheck. When Josh Koscheck gets knocked out, it's always fun times. And Lawler, he's back at his natural weight class. He's back down at welterweight, where he's facing guys. He looks bigger down there, and he can stop the takedown. I think he maybe did against Koscheck. I could be completely wrong there. But got up and hit him with strikes. And if you stand with Robbie Lawler and he tags you, you're going to be in trouble. Just look at his fights. He had, I think he was hitting Nicky Diaz way back in the day. Melvin Manhoef, he was getting his legs chopped to bits. Caught him with one shot, and Manhoef went to sleep and didn't wake up for minutes. I think he was supposed to face Tariq Saffiedine in this fight. He got pulled, I think, and then Volker came in. Volker's coming off a decision loss, and it was quite a dubious one to Patrick Cote at UFC 158, and he should have probably got the nod in that fight, but Cote got it by the hands of the judges. But I'm going to go Ruthless Robbie Lawler by knockout, first round. Next up, we've got the match I'm looking forward to the most. Rory McDonald, who is just a prodigy in that division, really young still, and he's been around for a long time, against Jake Ellenberger. Now, a lot of people are really writing Jake Ellenberger off here. I don't know why people are writing him off in this fight so quick. McDonald is a talent, there's no doubt about it. He's probably one of the best talents the UFC has, but he's become very kind of cocksure himself the last couple of fights, and he's been a bit of a dick, if I'm being honest, as well. As I say, he's only 24 years old, and his last win was against BJ Penn, way back in December. Before that, he dominated Che Mills. He beat Mike Pyle by TKO. I think his only loss in the UFC is to Carlos Condit as well, and he should have won that fight. That fight got stopped like real late in the third round. Sorry, and if that went to the judges, he would have won. Jake Ellenberger, who is just a stud in that division, he's faced top fighters for years in that division. Still only 28 years old, coming off a KO on Nate Marquardt, where he absolutely took his head off. Jay Heron, he beat by decision. Lost to Martin Kampmann. He got kneed and got KO'd. Beat Diego Sanchez, which was a great fight. Jake Shields, he beat Sean Pearson, Hosha, Howard, Mike Pyle. He's beat them all. He lost to Condit, but he's been facing top guys for years. And I just think a lot of people are going against Jake Ellenberger here, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people with a win over Rory McDonald here. So I'm going to go Jake Ellenberger, who, as I say, is he's a good striker. He's very powerful. His wrestling's very good. As is Rory McDonald, he's not really much of a finisher, but if he gets you to the ground, he stifles you, and he's very, very good. His top game's very good. But I'm going to go with Jake Ellenberger on this. I think people are writing him off too much, and I'm going to go Jake Ellenberger by decision. It's going to be a hard fight though. And then next up, we've got the main event of the night, which is Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson against John Moraga. I think we send out congratulations to Mighty Mouse. Him and his good wife have just had a kid, so congratulations to him. And I think it's his it's his third defence of the title. It is second defence, sorry, after winning his title against Joseph Benavidez. He had a really exciting fight against John Dodson, who John Dodson hurt Demetrious Johnson. You saw the heart of the champion in that fight come through, and you saw just how good Demetrious Johnson is. He took those shots, came back, grounded out a decision victory over John Dodson as well. Wins over Benavidez, as I said, a win over Ian McCall, who's the top fighter in that division. Now, there's nobody faster in the UFC, I don't think. Maybe John Dodson's up there, the Mighty Mouse. He is so quick. All the flyweights are quick, but he is really, really quick. He gets great takedowns. He takes you down. He holds you there. If you get back up, he's just got great takedowns, and he knows exactly when to go for them. But he's against John Moraga here, who fights out the lab in Phoenix, which is up and coming as one of the best training camps in mixed martial arts to learn to apply your trade. He's only fought twice in the UFC. Ulises Gomez and Chris Carriaso, one by KO and the other one by submission by a guillotine choke. Now, this is a big fight for him in his third fight in the UFC. Demetrious Johnson's just got too much for him, I think. I think he's going to take him to the ground, and it's going to be another decision victory for Demetrious Johnson, maybe a submission. I say Demetrious Johnson's faced some of the best already. Kid Yamamoto back in the day when it wasn't the best Kid Yamamoto. He faced Dominic Cruz for the title. That was a couple of years ago, I think it was. Yeah, for the bantamweight title. Beat Miguel Torres, Damasio Page as well. I just think he's got too much experience for John Moraga here, and I'm going to go either by a unanimous decision or a late submission. So that is my picks for UFC on Fox from Seattle. I think we're back soon for a card from Brazil, UFC 163, which is 3rd August, so it's not that far away, which is headlined by the great Jose Aldo against the Korean zombie Chan Sung Jung, and a really good card, which has had some injury hits recently, but still looks pretty solid. We've got Lyoto Machida against Phil Davis, Cesar Mutante against Thiago Santos, who's come in for Clint Hester, Talis Leites, Tom Watson, John Lineker against Jose Tomei, who's coming in for Phil Harris, and there's some great fights on the undercard as well. So that's my picks for UFC on Fox 8. Like this video, come and follow me on Twitter, BigBilber7MMA. Just share this video, get out there. I like to hear what people's picks are for events. Go to Tapology and put in your events. Do your picks through that. I love doing that. It's one of the things I like about Fight Night. And I'll be back for UFC 163 soon. I'll pop out the video. So thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it very much. Take care. Enjoy the fight card, and I'll speak to you all soon. Thank you.